Welcome to another episode of Treasure Chest, our very own fulfillment tools webcast, where we uncover insights from our customers, friends, and partners. Today, we want to dive into the future of eFood. eFood is an industry which is set a lot under pressure through worldwide crisis, inflation, tough margins, increasing competition, changing customer behavior. It's a very tough industry to be in at the moment. Today, we want to talk to Dana, Innovation Manager at REWE Digital. And for full transparency, REWE Group is investor in fulfillment tools and our customer with several entities in the grocery and DIY segment. So today we will explore the trends, the challenges, and the controversies all around innovation in eFood. So we will talk about AI-driven shopping experiences, about robotics, automation, drone deliveries, all the exciting stuff. So grab your digital card, sit back, and let's get started. So welcome, Dana. Thank you so much for visiting us in our wonderful office today. We are very happy to have you. And for those of you out there who don't know you yet, can you maybe quickly introduce yourself once again?
Of course, I'm happy to.
And especially your role in integrating new technologies at REWE.
Of course, will do. But first of all, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. It's an exciting topic, so I'm also curious where the conversation will take us specifically. But yeah, I guess I should start with the department I work for, research and innovation, because that already covers a lot of what I do specifically in my role. So we're a department within REWE Digital, and our mission, our aim is to drive technological innovation within REWE Group. So all that we do is we discover, we explore, we experiment with new technologies to figure out how to create value with those technologies for customers, for employees, and all the other stakeholders that we have. And so we have 3 teams. Innovation management, that's where I also work, acceleration management and engineering. And it's a very diverse crowd. It's super fun to be around with all these guys with a lot of passion for what they do, with a lot of different expertise around, as you said, automation, robotics, AI. So I'm very, very glad and honored to be working with those guys. They have a lot of knowledge that I can also fall back onto. And so we work in very cross-functional teams to obviously try to create the next big things and new ideas, which is, not that easy. So what we do is we work together and we cover the entire innovation funnel, if you will. So we do a lot of tech scouting, trend scouting. We do a lot of ideation, trying to figure out new ideas, try to be very creative around that. But then, of course, also asking the tough questions. How can we create proof of concepts? How can we actually inspire our colleagues what's already possible? And then when we see potential, how can we also scale small ideas into new services, new products, or even new businesses? So the world is not enough, as our credo. And yeah, I'm part of the team. I'm innovation manager, so I'm a little bit like a jack of all trades. I guess that's what describes it best. We do a lot of different things because what we want to do is we want to create new ideas. We want to drive innovation, drive new technologies into our businesses, into the world to inspire. And of course, that means doing a lot of different things depending on where you are on that roadmap, depending on what technology you work with or what specific idea you work with. To drill it down to the very basics, it's very creative project management, I would say, with also a strategic point of view when it comes to looking at trends, figuring out what to do first, in what order, how to create learnings fast in order to very, very quickly find out what is the value in this technology and should I pursue this technology, in what way, what can I use it for, what's the best application. So a lot of open questions, a lot of learning, a lot of fast learning. Yeah.
Very, very exciting. Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward because I think it's usually something that people talk about behind walls, and it's a very secretive topic. And very often there are only it feels like self-declared consultants that talk about tech innovations in grocery. And so thank you so much for opening up today, because you are the one implementing it, like searching for the new technologies. And I think that's very, very exciting. So thank you so much. So let's start, like, what's for you in research and innovation, what is the starting point of finding or looking for new technologies? Is it like a changing customer behavior that has changed during the past years, during COVID or whatever, where you say, okay, the customer has changed, now we do this and that? Or what's like the starting point? How do you approach innovations? Do you just say, oh, AI seems to be interesting right now, let's do it? Or how do you start? Where do you start from?
Well, AI is definitely interesting.
We'll talk about that later.
We will. I think there's not one way to do it, and that's what makes it fun and exciting, but also extremely challenging because there's no one-size-fits-all approach. It depends a lot on the people you work with. It depends a lot on the specific technology, and so we try to be very open in our ecosystem to get our groups onto as many things as possible, and a new idea can literally come from anywhere. So we go to conferences, we network a lot, we are in specific centers of expertise and knowledge clusters when it comes to research. So we're trying to be very interested in what's happening also in universities, to not lose contact with also those in groups that also full-time engage with new technologies and do research on interesting things. But it might also be a partner that we've already worked with. It might be some, I don't know, podcast you're listening to, or you might read something in the news, or a colleague might come up and say something interesting. So these impulses, these signals can really come from anywhere, and our job is to collect them and then to put together all the pieces to find out what's the most interesting part. And I think in theory, people always lay out a very nice process of first do that, then do that, and then do that. And we also have that process because you need to have a structure in place to know where you're going. Otherwise, you might feel like it's chaotic. But in reality, you need to stay flexible and agile, if I may use that word again, although it's overused, I know. But sometimes you do C first and then you do A, depending on what the circumstances are. Yeah. And then you just have to focus on what's the main goal and how can I learn them the fastest. But of course, we don't want to be too strictly driven by process and thereby maybe miss out on great opportunities that are out there.
Okay.
So long story short, network a lot and be open.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. So then what are the big technology trends that you are observing at the moment? Like if you want to categorize in big categories such as AI or whatever.
There's many out there, of course. What we see is a lot around AI and Gen AI, probably the easiest to name, top of mind, because it's also had a huge presence in the media for a reason as well, of course. We also see very interesting things happening in autonomous driving and automation, digitalization in the store. So those are the big shifts, the big trends that we see. More hybrid forms, more diverse formats, more targeted approaches, very, very interesting things going around. I think earlier you also said, like, hey, how does the consumer behavior change? And what is it actually that you do around that? Or is it also coming from a customer? And we usually put technology first, not only because we're techies, or many of us are true techies at heart, but also because we think that technology is a tool that people use to satisfy a demand. And what we've seen from the basic customer or human needs, they tend to stay the same. People like convenience, people like comfort, people like experiences, but then how people fulfill those needs changes depending on the opportunities, the possibilities that they have. So with changing surroundings and with new technologies, there come new ways of serving those customer needs. And that's why technology is so interesting to us, because it gives us a tool to explore those needs and how we might fulfill them in a new way as well, or if we might even tap into new ideas. So I think one of the very, very famous quotes that's been around for a long time is Henry Ford with his T model. model of saying if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses and not cars. So we're looking into disruptive technologies and really want to create new ideas. So that's why we ask customers for feedback when we have new ideas. But I think it's very challenging to do that work. So I wouldn't necessarily only look at customer demands or customer behavior per se without the other perspectives.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. So we've touched base quickly on AI. Let's unpack it. So to be honest, I can't hear it anymore. You read about it every day. No matter tech news, it's all about AI. Financial news, it's all about AI. I think it's just crazy. Everybody asks us about AI. What do you do with AI? How do you use AI? And it feels like there are so many companies far away from AI that say, oh, now we do this and that with AI, which is in many cases just an algorithm. And just to do something with AI, because you have to do it nowadays. You read about like the AI companies that are struggling to really build a very sustainable business. As of now, maybe that's normal in the first days of such a new technology, but it's a big topic. How do you see it from a grocery perspective? How do you experiment with it? How do you use it? Yes.
A lot of questions. It's a very exciting topic. So, of course, I'm very interested in it as well personally, but also for us as a company. I think for anyone really. So, for me, the AI boom that we have right now is like the next iPhone moment. Because if you think about the possibilities that you have so much to gain in productivity, in changing processes as well, that the visions that you can build around AI and also generative AI are so diverse and the opportunities are so endless that I think everyone should look into it because it will affect everyone's job at some point in time. I think it's like all of the different shifts that we had in the past when the internet came and all those big boom moments that in the beginning seem fuzzy, but I think this trend is really here to stay. There's a lot of potential in that. But I think, as you said as well, we're in the very, very early phase of that development. So we've done research and projects in AI for a long time. Generative AI is a new sort of experience now. So I think probably that's two leeways to explore and to talk about. When it comes to AI, we've done a lot of experiments and a lot of projects. Also, of course, as a base technology, it's part of other projects. When I said digitalizing the supermarket, the stationary market, of course, that comes into play. One dimension that we've been playing around with or that we've built projects on is computer vision. So our pick and go stores, if you know them, if you've heard about those, that's very fundamental to that technology working. We have another project which is called Catch, which also uses AI to build new customer experiences in the store. I'm happy to also explain a little bit more, but just to give a summary of all the things, of course, generative AI is also there. We look into avatars and how to interact with avatars and how that could look like. And we are also using a ChatGPT version inside of REWE to see how that may start things. But from a Gen AI perspective, I think, and that's also very important, it's something that, as I said, is really a possibility for anyone to use in their daily lives and their daily work. And so we wanted to approach this differently by not saying, hey, it's an expert topic and we're going to work with it, but we wanted to enable everyone to have the ability to learn about it and to explore, because I think it will be helpful for anyone's career to know some life hacks around it or to know how to use it and also when not to use it. So in the first few months, we've done foundational work and we've tried to create an environment where we set the rules of, hey, you can do that, but also do not do that. And this is the tools that all of you guys can use to spark more experimentation within the entire organization as well.
So what are some of the examples you shouldn't do with AI and why?
I think, well, first of all, it's what we all know with how do you say, personal data, but also sensitive data, because you quickly forget in day-to-day use that there's servers somewhere out there where information is stored and where information can also be accessed. So it's a little bit, of course, within everybody's responsibility to make sure that you don't leak information, as we also do in our professional lives now when we talk to partners, when we talk to media, etc. But because it's so personal, I think sometimes it's easier to type into ChatGPT, hey, please summarize this document for me, or whatever that is. So make sure that those things don't happen.
But
on a
does
very
it
personal
then
level.
still have really impact if you can't use sensitive data, like AI in the grocery context? If
Well,
you have to be so super careful that you cannot put in probably prices, stock levels, whatever. Is it still exciting then, or is it just like something to play around with? Everybody thinks, yeah, it's funny, but it doesn't really impact my day-to-day work.
I think it's the first steps of learning how to work with generative AI and how to also prompt generative AI, because you have to learn how to ask questions and how does the interaction work. And I don't think that just using ChatGPT is the end of the story, but rather the beginning. So I can see that there will be very different setups where you can also use different sorts of data when you make sure how that data is being processed and where, and you can do that legally, and you can find those environments that fit your needs and that also fit your requirements. It's just because it's so decentralized and so democratic that we have to make sure that in the very beginning we don't overlook all of those sorts of perspectives. But I think there will be additional setups and more different products. It's been so fast. I think in the first 6 months since the release of ChatGPT, there already have been applications written by engineers, by software engineers, by developers of how to use that. So it's so fast coming from base technology to, hey, this is a use case and this is a use case.
Yeah.
So if we keep up that speed, I think there will be a ton of additional applications and use cases that also will be very interesting also for e-grocery and for retailers.
Interesting, very interesting. So let's jump to the next technology. What I'm also super excited about is robotics, automation, stuff like that. What do you do in that space? What's your view on this technology in general, and how do you use it? And did you do some tests, or have you implemented it in any way?
Probably a lot of different ways, because I would also say that those are base technologies that you can do a ton of things with.
Yeah.
On the one hand, of course, our pick and go stores have been a great example. So really thinking about how can we create new customer experiences, putting convenience in the center and getting rid of that pain point of people have to queue and it's not fun. So how can we change that? And then putting a lot of technology in the market in terms of camera technology, in terms of weight and scale technologies, to be able to understand what do customers shop without having the actual cashier desk operation involved in the process. That's been an interesting ride that my colleagues have very successfully managed. So we're very proud of that example of digitalization in the store.
Yeah.
Another dimension is our last mile operations. So delivery, and how could other delivery operations look like, where we've done testing with drones, but also with sidewalkers. So of course also a lot of technology, hardware technology put into that space.
And for like your tests with drones and autonomous vehicles and stuff like that, like these little sidewalk robots, what are the biggest hurdles at the moment in like really getting like a widespread adoption?
I mean, we're talking Germany, so you're probably not surprised if my answer is regulation.
Okay.
Summarized in one sentence.
Yeah.
But yeah, regulation is challenging in Germany because there's a lot of rules to follow. And
Yeah.
we're happy we're managing, and we have our pilots out there, and we have been doing pilots. But I think that is something that if we want to see widespread adoption. That's something that needs to be made easier in order for us to do more research in there.
Okay, and is there any change coming up in the next years, or are you hopeful?
I hope so. I'm always hopeful. That's also part of my job description. Otherwise, we would be crying in our rooms all day. No, but it really is. I think it's been great to do our first pilots to see, is it technically possible. So we've done testing with drones in Germany. We were the first ones to fly commercially together with our partners with Wingcopter and also with the University of Applied Sciences, who are some of our partners. So that's been great to be part of the consortium that ran that project, just to see, can we do it? And if we can do it, how will it look like? But that also gives away a little bit of the story, because it in the end we are not allowed to fly over residential areas in Germany, and of course from a customer experience point of view, that takes away a lot of the option space.
Difficult.
But that was interesting. And then also the sidewalkers that we have piloted in Hamburg, just to look at that opportunity or at that application, see how that works. That was actually also very, very interesting to kids. So we had a lot of excitement in the streets when we had a little fun robot pass by.
And was it a one-time test, or is it still running right now?
Right now, it's actually not running because we've had our first phase, and we have to do a lot of the evaluations now and see what makes sense to continue, and how to grow the different ideas if we want to. But that's still to be seen.
So when talking about new technologies, trends, innovations, there are also always a lot of concerns around it, because you are super tech savvy, as you said. I am as well, and I think it's exciting to scan the products myself, and I love Pick and Go. But isn't there like somehow the human touch missing? If we talk about Pick and Go, for example, usually like a grocery store, a supermarket was a place where you meet other people, where you talk to the employees in the store, and where human touch is quite important for some of the consumers. And like, for example, my parents, they are not like that super tech savvy, and they still enjoy having somebody to ask a question. Or is that something you always have in mind when looking at such new technologies, or like designing your Pick and Go stores? Or is that something where you say, okay, that's not going to be relevant anymore in the future?
No, I think it's definitely going to stay relevant, because, as you say, we're all human and we like interacting with each other. But I believe that there are positive interactions, and then there are a little bit more stressful interactions depending on the circumstances and the part in the customer experience where you are. So what we try to do is we try to use technology to do the boring part, or technology to do the part that's not enjoyable, to have the people do what they love more. So also within the Pick and Go stores, it doesn't mean that there's no employees there. It means that they have time to do other things, such as maybe interacting more with the customers, because they have more time not doing things like sitting at the cash desk that they had to do before the cashier.
Okay, interesting. And when we talked about AI, we touched base briefly on data security, maybe also ethical stuff. And you've mentioned briefly there is a REWE version of ChatGPT. Does that also have to do something with like the data security stuff, or why is that there? And what's like the point on like ethical things to keep in mind when designing such technologies?
I'm looking forward to how the situation will be in the future, because the EU AI Act is in the making right now. So that's a very interesting change in time, and also change for interacting with AI if you're in the EU, because it's the first legislation of its kind, because people said, hey, we need to make sure that there's structures and that there's rules around that. And so I think we're going to see changes in the future. When it comes to data security, of course, our experts advise, and we also follow the experts when it comes to that, because we don't want to make stupid mistakes, to put it bluntly, where you don't really have a super high value yet because we're all experimenting. So I think right now it's more of making people aware of what to do and what not to do with the data, because it's just the base technology that we're exploring now. Whereas in the future, we will probably have products that have AI integrated, and then we need to make sure that, of course, the data security and the GDPR requirements and all of that is respected. So I'm looking forward how the rules will actually look like. And I think at the moment the experts are discussing the high-level legislation and how to translate it into what does it mean for us and how will we work with that. But there's like a categorization of AI into high risk to low risk.
Okay.
And the very high risk AI is actually going to be forbidden to be used because the governments and politicians want to, of course, make sure that people are safe and that there's no way that maybe by mistake or by design, people are getting hurt on a larger scale. So that means, well, now I'm not the expert on that, so I hope I can recite it and quote it in the right way now. But I think when it comes to AI applications or AI that is relevant or that uses personal data and that touches people's lives in terms of medicine, border control, state surveillance, so those big topics, and that we do not want to see those, or probably will not see those in the future for good reason. But yeah, don't quote me on that one, because if you're interested in the specifics, you should probably look into the legislation.
Yeah. So let's get back to the process of how you identify technologies, bring it into a pilot, bring it to adoption. You said there is a lot of like opportunistic behavior in terms of input channels where you get ideas and inspiration from. Can you maybe outline the whole process from like following a trend, bringing it to a pilot, bringing it to adoption? What are like the steps? How long does it take?
So that's exactly the steps. No, we have like an exploratory stage in the beginning where it's about the signals that we see in the market. So that may be news, that may be new pilots that we see that other companies are conducting anywhere in the world. That's new ideas that we get from conferences, from keynote speeches. That's also new research, new patents, all of those things. And then, of course, we need to somehow systematically work with that. So we need to somehow log that information and work with that. So we created our own trend radar that we work with, because there's so many trends that I think it can be a full-time job of just staying up to date if you want to be an expert. So what I've learned about that is good enough works great. So it's at some point you need to move on, right? So it's about those trends, but then think about, okay, what are the most relevant ones? What are the ones that we need to work with now? And why are those the ones that we will work with? And we've thought about exactly those questions as well and put them on a radar. And this is what gives us orientation, so that when we hear about new signals or news or partners approach us, startups approach us, that we can look at, okay, does that fit into a trend category that we're interested at the moment? Does that fit into an innovation field that we're actively looking into right now? And that gives us a little bit of a prioritization in the very beginning. And then, of course, there's the ideation phase. So trends, it's a lot for outside in. It's a lot of what is happening around me and what are the possibilities around me. And then ideation is more about, what can I do with that information? I have a strategy as a business. How can I use those trends to fulfill my strategy, to reach my strategic goals? And how can that specifically look like? So that's how we create new ideas. And then, of course, also there's very, very different formats how to create new ideas. There's the hack event within REWE Digital, which is a larger forum where anyone can participate to create ideas that they're interested in. We do workshops with other departments. We have a lot of knowledge because the organization is so large, as you know as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of intelligence and a lot of bright minds in there. So we want to tap into that as well. We have a software that helps us do the idea management so that we can also create transparency around that, which is super important, because otherwise you have a lot of the same idea in a different place of the organization, which naturally occurs if there's not enough transparency around what is happening. And then from that point, we want to do proof of concepts around the technologies that we find most promising, because we believe it's the most inspiring to really see things in action, and also to be able to really evaluate technologies and to think about partnerships. We don't do everything in-house. We have some projects which are done in-house, but also a lot of corporations and partnerships with startups, universities, other larger companies. And of course, you need to start a partnership to know if it's actually working out, and to get to that level of details usually not possible in the way or in the process of just talking to each other. So that's why we then do proof of concepts to see, is it working? Are the ideas that we had realistic? Do we have new insights, new information that we did not have before that helps us to refine that idea? And then we try to keep that in close compartments. So a little bit like you work in digital product development, to keep it in sprints, only that we don't manage in 14 days, obviously. But in the same logic that we want to reevaluate quickly and then make decisions of move on or do something else. So that's the balance that we have to strike. Is it worth pursuing an existing idea because we still see a lot of potential and we need to learn more about that? Or did Gen AI come up in the meantime? And we probably should also look into that now. So it's a very iterative process, a lot of gaining insights and talking to people as much as you can.
Okay. And how is it to get it like to a more widespread adoption? Do you feel like there are many like barriers in the heads of people that have been working here for 20 years and they say like, hey, it has always worked like that. Why should I change anything? Or what's like the spirit to get it to a wider adoption?
No, it's super easy. Usually I just call people and I think it's, again, depends really on the moments that you choose. I think timing is everything. Or a big part of the story. Maybe everything is a little bit too bold, but a big part of the story, because to run a pilot and to gain first learnings and insights, that's one thing, and it's already a big operation endeavor in itself. But then to scale something requires very different skills, and also requires the involvement of more people, of course. And so I think to make that work, you need to make sure that you find a common set of goals, that it does make sense for everyone to invest their time. Because I think that's only fair. I mean, why would I ask my colleagues to help me, to support me, and to grow something where they're not on board and where they don't really see why they should do that? So we all compete for time, essentially, within our working day. So that's really the first thing that we try to look at. Okay, what's the vision here? Do we share that? Where do we want to be? Where do we want to go, and why? And then that's also the timing part. It needs to fit into, of course, the plans that are established within organizations and the routines that are established within organizations as well. And that's the tricky part, where it's fun, because sometimes we find, I sometimes call them havens within the existing organization, where we can say, okay, this fits what you guys do, so maybe it makes sense at some point in time you take over. But more often than not, we do things that are more between the boxes, which is also our role. We are connectors, and we try to come up with new ideas that benefit a different set of people, either within the organization or outside. So when we scale things, a lot of the time we also have to figure out, or we have to think about, if we want to scale things, does that mean we need a new team? Does that mean we need a new organization? How much synergies do we have, and how much new work is this thing? It's not technically, or it's not specifically from the work I do now, but before I worked for REWE Digital as an innovation manager, I did have some project phase where I was sort of a PO, and we wanted to create a new business as well. So it was a digital marketplace of sorts. And in the beginning, we did development work because nothing was there yet. So it was super fun, and we started creating something. And when we had our minimum viable product, at some point it started of being new features or optimizing what we have. And then sort of the resource requirements doubled. But the service did not, or the product did not. And I think that moment, that was my first time learning of, okay, it's not a linear growth rate of work. It's exponential. And sometimes that's also what we experience in innovation, I think, in general. So making sure that people are prepared for what might come there and really getting expectation management right. That's when you can talk about scale. And I think there's a lot of great authors that have done work on the theory of when does innovation work and when does it not work, with not invented here syndrome, which I think you also sort of hinted at in the beginning, or innovator's dilemma, can you actually innovate from within, or the chasm, which is when you're so good at what you do because you've been doing that for a long time, why change? So I think those are relevant points because it's psychological to be that way. But that's also why I think it's great that we can exist and that we do exist, because it's our work and our task, our mission to represent all of the additional ideas and new ideas that you could do to have a place for those small flowers to grow before they can be transferred to other places.
Cool. Now my favorite question, and I think innovation managers hate that question. What are the big disrupting technologies that will shape especially the eFood industry in like 5 to 10 years? I'm right. You hate it.
It's a great question. Thank you for the question. It's probably a hard question to answer because nobody can look into the future. But that's also
that's your job.
Fun part. Exactly. I was just going to say, but I've done future work and also strategic futures work, as I've come to learn. So I'm trying to speak in plural because I think there's different possibilities how things might pan out. And I think if I was going to say it's going to look exactly like that, I have like a 0.1% chance that it's going to look like exactly that. But there might be different tendencies. So we like to explore different versions and follow the trends rather than saying, I think this is how the world will look. So let's work towards that specific vision, that very, very concrete picture, but rather look at the different trends that are going that way. And for disruption, it's such a tough game to play because, I mean, disruption means you didn't plan it. So by definition, I cannot know. It's something that usually takes you aback, but that's also the curiosity and the very challenging and demanding, but also fun part around the job of really learning as fast as possible if things happen, and then trying to tell what's just a hype and what's here to stay. So because you will see signals and then they multiply, and at some point you have to make a decision, is this a hype? Will it go away? Or is this here to stay? Is this the beginning of something great? And I think I'm personally still on a learning curve when it comes to that. But for one, I think we're going to see more automation. So just looking at the facts of we have a labor shortage, it's probably not going to get easier to find people to do all of the jobs that we do manually today. So we will not have options other than automate more where people don't want to do jobs anymore. And that might also turn into last mile delivery solutions where you just don't have, I don't know how many people that are working in that space now that are available to do as much volume that you have demand for with pure manual work. I think, Gen AI is here to stay, definitely. So sometimes we also talk about that from a generational point of view because I grew up when the internet came about in Germany-ish. So I had a childhood before the internet, and then I grew up late teenager with the internet, and then learned how to use the internet.
Yeah.
And then there's now this new change with generative AI and what can it do. So I've grew up learning, okay, I use a search machine and I type in a search word or different keywords to find information, but then I have to aggregate and I have to do all that work manually still. It's a very different experience and way of working rather than having now generative AI where you can just say, okay, please play this. I want this. Find the best for. It's a lot less involvement in certain activities. And when I think about there's a generation that will come into this world learning this as that's how things are. I think it's a great, also philosophical and creative exercise to think about how will this generation live and how will they behave and how will their demands work with using AI and integrating generative AI in the way that they will be our colleagues of the future. So what is the demands from a workplace and how will they actually work? It will be our consumers in the future. So how will they shop? When you might look at a mobile phone, an iPhone, and think that maybe there's no more apps. It's just an interface and you just talk to it and you say, I need this and that, or I don't know the level of abstraction that we may reach, but there will be a lot of work that will not be done by people anymore, but by technology that puts certain ideas into practice and that makes decisions as well. Because I imagine it might be on a very high level. Somebody says, hey, I have a dinner party to throw, and I want everybody to be happy with the food. Maybe your device already knows who are the people that are coming, what do they like, what are their allergies like, all of the shopping experience that comes after that. Maybe that's all done by technology because your main goal as a host is just to make your friends happy. And maybe not specifically designing the food if you're not a chef or if you're not that interested in food per se. So I think that's very interesting to speculate about how will the future look like when we look at that. And then I think we're going to see more digitalization in the store still. So we have a lot of opportunities. And I think it's great that we have those stores, that we have the supermarkets, because there are also places where people meet, as you said. So I think there's a lot of potential to improve those customer experiences even more and to bring them to the next level, maybe creating more hybrid solutions or setups involving technology and solving some of those pain points as well. I think earlier I very briefly mentioned Catch as a project that we do. And that's around having a software solution in the shopping cart that helps you shop. So the cart knows what is on your list, and then it can help you navigate the store if you don't know. So it can show you where the products are, but it can also make recommendations if you're looking for or what other products you might be interested in based on what you're shopping, or you can play promotions with it. So the ability to somehow more personalize the shopping experience, because I mean, ideally a person could also do that, but I don't know if it's realistic to imagine a world where everybody who enters a supermarket has their personal shopper assigned to them. And maybe also a great idea. But I think there's so many different opportunities around digitalization as well.
And so, final question. I know that from the work of your whole department, research and innovation, REWE Group is super advanced when it comes to new technologies, to innovations. You guys do a very professional job. What advice could you give other grocery retailers or retailers of different industries in how to exploring this topic of innovations?
I think it applies to any company that's somehow active in the innovation space, probably because it's a lot of unstructured work that you need to do. So you need to choose the right people to be able to navigate all of those influences and all of those things. But as a company, I think you need to stay open and you need to give those people the freedom to experiment and to develop those ideas. So stay curious, stay creative, and also stay flexible. I know it's on a very, very high level, but there's so many specific examples where it always comes back to those ideals or to those mantras of we need support from the top management in order to be able to do those things. So very happy that we have that and that we have the freedom to experiment and that we have the space to do that.
Yeah.
And without that, I don't think it would be possible to grow this bottom up.
Okay, perfect. Dana, thank you so much for all these exciting insights, like telling us how you approach technologies, what you have tested so far. I still learned a lot, and I hope everybody who's listening or seeing us on the internet learned a lot as well. Thank you for taking the time. Really appreciate it, and all the best.
Thank you to you as well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.